The complete story of Ash's Charizard. Ever wonder how this cute Charmander went from being Ash's favorite Pokemon to betraying and backstabbing Ash to even hurting him in many instances? We can only find out if we go back in time to the very beginning, when Ash was just a young, naive 10-year-old Pokemon trainer who dreamt of becoming a Pokemon master in the future. As part of his experience during his little beginnings, Ash got lost with his team on one of his journeys, and that's how he found little Charmander in the middle of nowhere, somewhere outside Vermilion City. Not moving or doing anything, just waiting for someone. Ash's first instinct was to take this Charmander as his own, since this was actually his dream starter Pokemon. But the little creature wouldn't leave its spot. After several attempts, Ash and his team concluded that he must be waiting for his trainer to come and get him. This is where I get to introduce the villain of this story, Damien, former trainer of Charizard. This guy came the closest to actually killing his poor Pokemon. Damien left Charmander out in the rain. How cruel. Charmander never left its spot because it always had hope that his trainer would come back, so it was willing to die waiting. That's right. Charmanders can actually be killed by rain because the flame on its tail isn't just for aesthetics. It actually keeps them alive. Can you imagine how disturbing that is? What's even crazier is that it can express its feelings with the fire on its tail as well. Hoping that the trainer comes back soon, they leave with Charmander crying softly as they walk away. It's heartbreaking, but not as heartbreaking as what happens later on. As Ash and his team arrived at a local place they had picked so they would come back to check if the Charmander had been picked up by its trainer, that's where they encountered Damien, who was bragging about abandoning a Charmander because it was weak. Ash and Brock, being the men of the team, confronted Damien about his attitude, and they urged him to go and get his Pokemon because it was raining. Damien remained indifferent about the whole situation, prompting Ash, Brock, and Misty to rescue Charmander. On their way to rescue Charmander, they discovered that the poor Pokemon was being attacked by a group of sparrows. They found it abandoned in a rainstorm, cowering under a small leaf in a desperate attempt to keep the flame on its tail lit. The crazy part was that this Pokemon never left its spot either. Imagine staking your life for someone that doesn't give a damn about you. That's called loyalty. Charmander made a huge impression on fans in this episode, and to this day, the image of Charmander huddling under that leaf is known to provoke strong feelings, even in those who haven't watched the show in years. Ash ordered Pikachu to use its Thunder Shock to fend off the sparrows, and they wrapped Charmander in a blanket to protect its tail flame. Ash and friends rushed the suffering little creature to the Pokemon Center, where Nurse Joy was able to treat it. That same night, after the Charmander had recovered, Ash and friends slept on the couches of the Pokemon Center, only to have Charmander head back to the rock to wait for Damien when the weather was better. Poor little thing still believed Damien would come back for him. Ash and his team decided to give up on helping Charmander because they couldn't understand why he'd want to go back to someone who left and abused him. But later in the episode, while roaming, Charmander encountered Team Rocket, who had captured Pikachu. It used its flamethrower to defeat Team Rocket and free Pikachu, repaying Ash's kindness. Damien, having witnessed Charmander's strength, suddenly wants it back, claiming he had been searching for it. However, by then, Charmander realized that Damien has left him behind and never cared for him, so he refused to go back with an awful trainer, and Damien, in spite, curses the Pokemon, telling him that he would never keep such a weak Pokemon by his side. Charmander was hurt and fed up with the manipulation, so he rejected Damien and attacked him with the flamethrower. Charmander then wanted to join Ash's team, and despite everything, Ash didn't hold any grudges towards him, and he accepted. I had a crush on Damien before now, but after seeing the way he treated Charmander, I must confess, I don't even want to see his face anymore. Ash, having saved Charmander, seemed to have gained a loyal and strong Pokemon by his side. Charmander will be a great Pokemon! Those were the words of Brock to Ash without knowing the hellish journey they were getting themselves into. In the episode Snow Way Out, when Ash fell down a cliff, he couldn't manage to climb it back up, so he called out for Brock and Misty. But when they couldn't hear him, he decided to dig a snow cave like Brock suggested earlier in the episode. Ash began to dig with his bare hands, but soon his hands were too cold to keep going, and he asked Charmander to use his flamethrower to carve an opening on the snow wall. Ash and his other Pokemon helped Charmander seal the open cave with snow. Once the cave was sealed, Ash noticed that his Pokemon were tired and cold and suggested Instead, they sit by Charmander's tail flame to keep warm during the blizzard, making Charmander the hero of the moment. Later, Charmander was tired and exhausted from all the effort as they were trapped in the cold cave, so he couldn't keep them warm any longer. Ash felt it would be warm inside the Pokeball, so he sent all his Pokemon back into their Pokeballs, except Pikachu, who was reluctant. He tried to convince Pikachu to go into his Pokeball, but Pikachu refused because he couldn't leave Ash alone in the cold. The wind blew the sealed wall of the cave open and Ash rushed to sit with his back against the hole. Ash and Pikachu were still arguing when Squirtle, Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Pidgeotto broke out of their Pokeballs and cuddled up with Ash in an effort to keep each other warm. You know how the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Ash cried as his Pokemon settled around him. Charmander on his right, Squirtle on his left, Pidgeotto on his shoulder, Bulbasaur on his lap, and Pikachu clinging to his leg. I'm not crying. Not only was Charmander helpful, it was also part of a new family. Due to all the Pokemon battles it fought, Charmander gained a huge amount of experience, battling a whole horde of Executor in the March of the Executor Squad. After the fight was over, Charmander had a lot of experience points, which caused his evolution into Charmeleon. This was the beginning of chaos! A Charmeleon subsequently had a drastic personality change. Charmeleon became disobedient, not caring about Ash anymore. Due to the jump in level, he now viewed himself as a higher skill level than Ash, his trainer. In the Pokemon games, a similar mechanic exists where strong Pokemons only obey trainers with enough gym badges. Charmeleon saw Ash as unworthy of its power and started acting independently. Slowly, ego crept in. Charmeleon only cared about itself and did only what pleased it. This affected Ash in so many ways. In the problem with Paras, Charmeleon was such a bully. Cassandra told Ash that she wanted to battle so Paras could evolve and she could use Parasec's giant mushroom to make a super healing potion, but Paras was too afraid to battle. Ash agreed to lose the battle so Paras could gain some experience. He sent out Charmeleon to battle, instructing it to go easy on Paras. Charmeleon gave an ominous glare to Ash, and Brock assumed Charmeleon apparently didn't want to lose the fight. Suddenly, Charmeleon got very violent, attacking Paras with a flamethrower and then sending him flying with a tail whip. Paras ran away in tears, causing Cassandra to go after him. Ash was about to reprimand Charmeleon for its aggressive behavior, but the Pokemon blasted fire at his face. Ouch! That must have hurt. Pikachu knocked out Charmeleon with Thunderbolt, which enabled Ash to recall him. Ash was shocked by Charmeleon's aggression. Later in the same episode, Ash and his team found Paras in a tree, with Team Rocket hiding nearby. Paras seemed so confident, they assumed it was ready to battle again. Pikachu allowed Paras to knock him out, and Ash sent out Charmeleon, and he disobeyed Ash again. Ash couldn't understand why Charmeleon was ignoring his commands, and Cassandra's grandmother explained that if a Pokemon's strength exceeded the trainer's skill level, it won't obey its trainer because it no longer respects him. Ash tried to recall Charmeleon, but it used Flamethrower on him before turning its attention to Paras. Team Rocket jumped out of the bushes to protect Paras, but Charmeleon launched a Flamethrower at them as well. Fortunately, Paras defended itself by using its claw to jab Charmeleon in the stomach, knocking it out. Everyone cheered for Paras, which evolved into Parasect. Eventually, Charmeleon regained consciousness, got angry at Team Rocket, and knocked them with Tail Whip, blasting them off. Then it went after Parasect to avenge its injured pride. On the other hand, Cassandra was still scared of Parasect getting injured, but Parasect used Spore to make Charmeleon go to sleep. Ash could finally recall him due to this reason, and he was very disappointed with him due to his disobedience. Realizing he needed time to think everything through, Ash decided to stop using Charmeleon for a while. But that didn't change anything. You see, there was a life-threatening encounter with fossil Pokemons in Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon, and Charmeleon was the only Pokemon available to save the day. Due to a bomb blast, Ash, Team Rocket, and Pikachu found themselves underground. Ash sent out Charmeleon, but he refused to battle such weak opponents. Just then, the fossil Pokemon suddenly ran off. They were happy the Pokemon left, only to realize an Aerodactyl appeared as it scratched Charmeleon down and grabbed Ash and swooped up into the air. Meanwhile, Geodude had finally found a hole leading into the cave. The crowd were helping Ash and Team Rocket dig the ground, and suddenly, the Aerodactyl flew up out of the hole with Ash in its grasp. We all know that Charmeleon won't let that pass. It wanted to battle Aerodactyl, but when it showed Aerodactyl the scratch it made on its forehead, Aerodactyl only taunted it. Upset for being taunted, Charmeleon angrily stomps its feet and roared. Evolving as everyone watched before, Charizard was finally revealed. The beast no one could tame. Unleashing its flamethrower, Charizard chased Aerodactyl. This gave Ash a glimmer of hope. He felt that Charizard still cared about him despite its attitude and strong-willed behavior. But Ash learned the truth the hard way, as Charizard's flamethrower accidentally burnt Ash. Of course! Charizard had only evolved to fight Aerodactyl for its own pride. Charizard refused to battle any Pokemon it felt were way below his league. It was gonna take a while before Charizard fully learned how to behave properly, and Ash often struggled with its disobedience and unwillingness to face Pokemon that aren't fire types. You see, there was this volcano badge. Ash was dying to get in the volcanic panic. Ash later challenges Blaine, the 7th gym leader, using Charizard. Charizard only engaged after deeming Blaine's Magmar a worthy opponent, displaying its full strength in the battle. With the battlefield destroyed, Ash and Blaine agreed to battle one-on-one on the summit of the volcano. Blaine with Magmar and Ash with Charizard. As the battle began, both sides traded flamethrowers before Magmar countered with a fire blast. When Charizard dug in and managed to deflect, Magmar proceeded to hit Charizard with a Skull Bash, pushing him into a pillar. Charizard began to fall towards the lava, but it recovered and locked up with Magmar. Magmar used Charizard's own momentum against him by flipping him over and pushing the two into the lava. Although Ash called it a foul, Blaine reminded him that under the volcano was still part of their agreed-upon battlefield. However, once the two emerged from the lava, Charizard was now the one with the upper hand, using its flight to create an aerial submission attack to then finish off Magmar with Seismic Toss. Having won the battle, Ash proceeds to congratulate Charizard and return him, only to be blasted in the face with another flamethrower. As it turned out, Charizard only obeyed Ash in order to satisfy his competitive streak against Magmar, and nothing more. Still, Ash had earned his volcano badge and left soon after. Despite earning a gym badge, Charizard still didn't respect Ash. This creates even more problems for Ash, including his loss against Richie. In the anime, Ash's Charizard refused to battle Richie's Pikachu in the Indigo League tournament after scarring of Richie's Charmander with an intense flamethrower. When it came to Richie's Pikachu, Ash's Charizard deemed it an unworthy opponent for it and refused to battle. Ash lost the match as a result, taking him out of the tournament. It broke my heart to see Ash crying after being eliminated from the Indigo League he worked so hard for. In the Electric Tele Pikachu, a manga which loosely adapted the TV anime, Ash's match with Richie was very unexpected. And this time, it's because Charizard decided to fight at full strength. In Chapter 13 of the manga, Ash entered the 5th round of the tournament where he pitted against Richie. Ash first pitted his Squirtle against Richie's Butterfree, and then Ash's Pikachu versus Richie's Pikachu, with both matches ending in draws. Ash and Richie sent out their next Pokemon, and it's revealed both are using Charizard. The pair immediately engaged in a tooth and claw battle, which Brock said was the Charizards battling out a pure instinct, like a territorial dispute in the wild. Ash's Charizard lunged at Richie's Charizard's neck, with its teeth breaking its opponent's skin, drawing blood. Even when Ash ordered it to back off, it ignored him and got very close to killing the opposing Charizard. Ash had no choice but to call it back and admit defeat, getting knocked out of the tournament. A feral creature battling to the death. This was one of the few times in the entire Pokemon franchise that a Pokemon was shown bleeding, much less as the result of another Pokemon's attacks. The only other instance that came close to it was the Charizard scene in Detective Pikachu, which doesn't have blood, but does show a truly uncontrolled Charizard on a rampage. In reality, Pokemons like Charizard would be some truly terrifying creatures, capable of inflicting unimaginable damage, and the Electric Tele Pikachu provides a glimpse of how dangerous a wild Charizard would be. Perhaps Ash in the anime should be glad that his Charizard only ever wanted to slack off, because the alternative is far worse. Ash is berated several times for not being a good enough owner to handle his Charizard. Charizard doesn't take anyone's orders because it doesn't respect them. Despite the fact that Ash helped Charizard and risked his life for him, Charizard's level makes him view Ash as a weakling undeserving of his acknowledgement. Ash's Pokemon beating him up before respecting protecting him seemed to be a recurring theme throughout the series, though this could be because Ash's Pokemon are more like rowdy friends than Pokemon as pointed out by Misty during the Indigo League. We've been feeling bad for Ash, always trying to bring out the best in Charizard without trying to understand why Charizard acted the way it did. Charizard's behavior stemmed from its trauma with Damien, fearing that obedience might lead to weakness and abandonment again. Since it left Damien and joined Ash's team, though everything may have looked okay, it had a new family, it had friends, it fought a lot of battles with Ash, but there was still this trust issue it had with Ash. Damien had left the poor Pokemon in a bitter state, and Charizard held on to the grudge no matter how much Ash had cared for it more than how Damien treated it. Despite every public humiliation, Ash still loved Charizard, demonstrating patience and as he still kept it by his side. In the Orange Islands, a pivotal moment occurred when Charizard was in the episode Charizard Chills, where Ash wanted to use Charizard to battle Tad's Poliwrath. Charizard, so full of himself, had already decided not to battle such a Pokemon. Much to the horror of his friends, Ash commented that he could handle Charizard, just as it burned him with a flamethrower. Tad recognized Charizard's power, but he explained to him that he would never make it into the Orange League with a disobedient Pokemon. At Tad's request, Poliwrath launched a water gun at Charizard, which instantly called the Pokemon back to the beach. As Ash urged his Pokemon to work with him, Charizard knocked him to the ground and attempted to hit him with his tail. Charizard continued to ignore Ash. He flew into the air to hit the Poliwrath with a flamethrower. The two opponents fired water gun and flamethrower attacks several times. The match came to an abrupt end when Poliwrath unleashed a powerful ice beam that froze Charizard, except for its flaming tail. Charizard plummeted to the sand, and Ash desperately tried to free his Pokemon from the ice with a rock. Tad recalls Poliwrath, but made a promise to Ash a rematch once he learned how to handle Charizard. He left his Charizard freezing and Ash seething from the defeat. Ash stayed up all night caring for the injured Charizard, and it eventually woke up and began to thrash around in panic, just as Ash's friends returned with some firewood. Charizard tried to launch a flamethrower at Ash, but it fainted once again as it had not fully recovered. Ash's efforts seemed to be paying off as Charizard woke up again and his tail flame began to burn once again. As Ash continued to massage Charizard, he became emotional as he tried to express the fact that he wasn't the best trainer, asserting that he was always trying to get better and hoped that one day the two will battle side by side. Charizard secretly paid attention to Ash's words and reminisced about his time with Ash. From the next day, Ash started earning its trust and respect. From then onwards, Charizard and Ash became a powerful team, winning the Orange Islands competition. Ash could finally tame the beast Pokemon. This led to an unexpected invitation. In the episode Charizard's Burning Ambition, Ash with his Charizard were invited to the Charrific Valley. Charrific Valley is actually a sanctuary for Charizards where they train and grow stronger. Liza, protector of the valley, offered to let Ash into the Charrific Valley as she taught him how to fly with his Charizard. Every Charizard in Charrific Valley was wild, except for Charla, Liza's Charizard. Liza mentioned its history and how the Charizards train naturally without humans by battling each other, with the intense competition making them the strongest worldwide. Misty felt it would be too intense for Ash's Charizard, but Charizard tried to prove its strength. However, Charla and Liza note that only the weak Charizard shows off, suggesting that Ash's Charizard needed training. Charizard fired a flamethrower to disprove this, but he briefly sets Ash on fire while he took her comments as an insult. Ash demanded to have a battle with Liza using Charla, but she mentioned that she raised her since she was a Charmander. As a result, Ash and Charizard went to battle the ones in the valley, so Liza showed them all of the other Charizard, leaving them stunned at their larger size. Liza insisted that if Ash's Charizard could defeat one of her own, then it could be part of the Charizards in the valley. Charizard marched up behind Liza's selected Charizard, hitting it in the face with a flamethrower. The wild Charizard inhaled the attack like a boss and retaliated with its own. This left Ash's own Charizard burnt, and it collapsed. Liza, in anger, threw Ash and his team, together with his Charizard, outside the valley gates, telling them to return when they've had enough training. Charizard, reluctant at leaving, banged the gate multiple times before Liza came out and took him in. But without Ash! Despite the heartbreak Ash went through, he allowed Charizard to stay and train, but assured it that he would always be his Charizard. Ash could see how his Charizard loved being around other Charizard, so he leaves him saying that he isn't strong enough and can train here before coming back to him. They both knew that was just an excuse, so Ash doesn't keep him against his will. He made a promise to see him again. Ash made a very difficult decision to leave Charizard there to train, believing it's best for its growth. Charizard may have spent several years in Charrific Valley, Valley, but he continued to help Ash during his journey. He frequently showed up no matter the current season to help his longtime friend. Charizard wouldn't reappear until it was time for Ash's final Johto badge in the Great Bowls of Fire, where Charizard's training brought it to the Blackthorn City while Ash was there. Charizard joins Ash to fight for the final Pokemon Gym badge and stayed for the Silver Conference, where Ash would place in the top 8. Another comeback occurred when Ash came home to Kanto to challenge the Battle Frontier in the right place at the right time, and again during the Black Frontiers arc's final match. Charizard fought well, but was ultimately defeated by Dusclops and returned to the valley afterward. Charizard didn't appear during the anime Sinnoh era, but would finally be seen again long after Ash arrived in Unova. Ash was reminded of his Charizard by a Charmander and asked to have his Charizard sent to him by Professor Oak. So a Pokemon exchange was made with Professor Oak, and Charizard came for a visit. When it met Iris's Dragonite, sparks flew immediately, and the two of them started trying to pick a fight, and rather than trying to stop them, Ash decided to turn it into a proper battle. It was clear that Charizard had been training hard in the Terrific Valley, but the Pokemon showed just how strong they are. When the battle came to an end, I observed that the two Pokemons had found real respect for each other. Ash requested that Charizard should rejoin him on his journey, and the answer was an enthusiastic yes. So it's off once again to the White Ruins, but now with Charizard along, reunited with our hero once again. All in all, Charizard's personality has had quite the bumpy ride over the years. Charizard was last seen during Pokemon Journeys at Professor Oak's lab, where it would work with some of Ash's other Pokemon, like Gengar, to help them train and learn new moves. Charizard was shown watching Ash's battles in the World Coordination Series tournament as well, and memories of Charizard were seen by Pikachu during the climatic bout to cheer him to victory. Despite much speculation, Ash's Charizard never Mega Evolved into Pokemon XY, nor did it Gigantamax during Pokemon Journeys, so it has never used any of the newer forms Charizard has acquired over the years. That's the same way we will never stop giving you quality content over the years to come. Check out the birth to death of Ash Ketchum and Pokemon. I know you love my stories. See ya!